We're so excited to be here and start the program. It's a sincere pleasure for both JB and I to be here and to recognize to our professorship ceremony. We've talked a lot about recognition. We talk a lot about thanking the folks, and I'm very glad that thanks to the efforts of our colleagues on staff, we get to walk the walk and recognize folks. I'm Andrew Medvedev. I'm the co-dean of Weatherhead School of Management, along with my trusty partner, JB. And we're honored to be with you all this evening to celebrate the academic excellence that you see in this room. Now, a wise colleague of ours told me once that excellence means not having to choose. Excellence in research means having research that is rigorous, world-class, and relevant. And I think the colleagues here really represent that well. Except I think our excellence comes in the unpretentious variety. And I think the folks that are sitting here today really exemplify that. These are the folks that are in the classroom working with students so that a Boyatzis or a Fry or a Fogarty class really means having those folks in the classroom. And that's a rarity, as we know from our students and from competing schools. These are the folks that actually are publishing actively in both academic and professional journals. But on top of all, they happen to be phenomenal human beings that I, having worked with a lot of really capable professionals, feel honored every day to share the building with. So it is my sincere pleasure to kick off the celebration for this group with the following folks. Richard Boyatzis, the H. Clark Ford Professor. Richard. Tony Buccaro, the Lewis Progressive Endowed Professor. Tim Fogarty, the Andrew Braden Professor in Accounting and Auditing. Ron Fry, the Charles Ames Professor. Greg Jonas with the longest endowed professor title. Elizabeth M. and William C. Troyhoff Professor of Management. Greg. Leonardo Monterrera, the Kenneth Walter Haber Professor. Manoj Malhotra, the John Mannix Medical Mutual of Ohio Professor in Healthcare Management. And last and certainly not least, J.P. Stevens, the Theodore M. and Catherine C. Alfred Professor in Management. These individuals and colleagues have demonstrated exceptional dedication to research, teaching, and service, and their contributions have really enriched this community and the world beyond. JB?
This evening wouldn't be possible without the philanthropic support, and I was just looking at the list here, thinking that I've been here for 45 years now, and I actually knew most of the people that are up there that come after the name, which is amazing. I used to joke that I knew the names of the buildings were named after, but not completely. Anyway, I would like to thank the people that have given money to support this. This would not be happening without you. We'd like to take a moment to thank you. So we picked a time in the middle of the winter when many snowbirds are not in town. So it's unfortunate that a number of people couldn't make it. But for those who are here that are from a sponsoring organization or individuals, would you please stand so we can recognize you? I know some of you are out here. I know the Medical Mutual folks because I held that chair for a number of years, and I'll say a little bit more about John Mannix later on when we get to that point. Anyway, it's wonderful to have you here, but we'd like to go ahead and get started because I learned one thing: don't stand between people and cocktails. Okay, so we want to keep going on this thing. Let me invite Ellen Van Osten and Melvin Smith to come up to the podium and introduce our first nominee.
Thank you, JB and Andrew.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's my sheer pleasure, along with my colleague Melvin Smith, to tell you a little bit about Richard Boyatzis. For years, the Weatherhead School had a slogan, ahead of the curve. And in many ways, that is a fitting description, if not even a perfect one, for Dr. Richard Boyatzis. Over a career spanning 60 years, Richard is known as a visionary, a scholar, a psychologist, an author, a speaker, an educator, a researcher, an advisor, a colleague, a mentor, and even before that, a musician. From the moment he arrived at the Weatherhead School over 35 years ago, he's held appointments in the departments of organizational behavior, psychology, and cognitive science, and currently serves as a distinguished university professor and a professor in these departments. Richard has touched many lives in many enduring ways. I'm grateful to be one of those people. I first met Richard 30 plus years ago when I was a mere MBA student here, and I returned to a role years later in executive education when he happened to be associate dean. I learned in that role how to refine my negotiating skills every time I tried to convince him to deliver a custom program and he wanted more money for it. Years later, it was Richard who planted the idea with me to apply for our organizational behavior department, or PhD program rather, which really wasn't on my radar. And years later, looking back, it was really a pivotal moment as I pursued that path. One big draw was the chance to study with Richard, learn from him, and collaborate with him. I have Richard to thank for several highlights of my career: completing my PhD, becoming a professor, starting the coaching research lab with him and with Melvin, and co-authoring my first book, his many in a line of his books, Helping People Change. Thank you, Richard.
This feels kind of like the Academy Awards where you're up there with, back and forth with the presenters and where's my teleprompter? So my connection to Richard in many ways is similar to that of Ellen's through part of our careers and how we've been influenced by Richard and his work. My connection, however, started over 22 years ago when I was in the job market as I was finishing up my doctoral program at the University of Pittsburgh. And Richard was my first contact here at Case and here at the Weatherhead School. And after meeting Richard and learning more about his work, he became the primary reason I decided to join the faculty of the Weatherhead School and, have my entire academic career be here at Case and at Weatherhead. Richard was initially my department chair. Quickly became a close colleague, frequent co-author, an incredible mentor, and a good friend. So again, very grateful for him and just all that he has done for me in addition to the field as a whole. Now, Richard hasn't just influenced the two of us in his many years here. He has also served as a thesis advisor for 101 doctoral candidates over the years, 101 as an advisor. In addition to that, he served on another 63 doctoral committees. Richard, for those of you who know him, is a provocative, bold, innovative thinker. Right? But Richard possesses a rare and I would say incredible ability to not only understand through rigorous research what makes individuals and organizations more effective, but also he has that ability to, in an incredibly powerful and compelling and memorable way, to articulate those findings, whether it be through his writing, whether it be on stage, literally in front of thousands, whether it be in a small classroom of students, or whether it be on video, presenting his knowledge and concepts in a massive open online course. Now, I want to just highlight just briefly some of the many kind of highlights or accomplishments of Richard's over his 50-plus year career. Those include being named a distinguished university professor here at Case, being granted an honorary PhD from Asade Business School in Barcelona, Spain for his many contributions, being ranked in the top 1% to 2% of all scientists throughout the world, right, cross disciplines. Richard has over 92,000 citations. So for those of you who kind of understand the whole citation game, and that's rarefied air. He has over 200 academic articles that he's published. He's also published 9, soon to be 10 books. which have been translated into 31 different languages. And Richard has reached over 1.5 million people through a series of 3, again, massive open online courses, or MOOCs, created here at CASE. Now, I could go on, but I think the orchestra in the back would begin to play me off stage, so I won't go any further here. But again, this is just scratching the surface, but I'll turn it back to Ellen here for a moment.
We just wanted to wrap up and say tonight we stand on the shoulders of giants in our school, thanks to our benefactors and our ability to honor them because of you and your generosity. And so to all of you, please join us in celebrating the man, the myth, and the legend, Richard Boyatzis, on his appointment. Thank you.
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, excuse the pronunciation, a noted French novelist and poet, had said, if you want to build a ship, don't herd people together to collect wood and assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. That's been my guiding principle throughout my now almost 6 decades as a scientist, and my guiding principle in trying to work with colleagues and motivate students. And what's very clear in this process is the quest, although it starts as an individual activity, you're not alone. So I'd like to thank a number of particularly impactful people in my life. Of course, it starts with my mother and father, Kyriakos and Sophia, who, along with my wife, who I've worked with and known and loved for over 50 years, have helped me to be a better person, and actually not just write about emotional intelligence, but occasionally show it. But in terms of curiosity, it starts with Max Boyson, who was my high school physics teacher. And then at MIT, it was Dave Kolb and Ed Schein. At Harvard, it was Dave McClelland, and continued with Dave Kolb, but also Fried Bales. And then in the next almost 30 years, it was a lot with Dave Kolb here at Case, as well as Dave McClelland, till he died. But in the last 20 years, there have been 2 people who have stood out above and beyond all others. Ellen Van Osten and Melvin Smith, as both personal coaches, guides, co-authors, co-creators, co-conspirators. But there are a few other individuals that I also want to acknowledge. Dan Goldman, who taught me to write in English and to communicate with normal people. Professor Tony Jack here, who really has been my mentor around the neurosciences. But also Scott Taylor and Angela Passarelli, who now have tenured positions at other universities. The oddity of this is when JB and Andrew approached me about this chair, I thought the name was vaguely familiar, the H. Clark Ford, so I looked it up. And it turned out that not only was Clark Ford a great philanthropist and a very successful professional and business person, but one of his 6 children and his wife built the house that my wife and I lived in for 30 years in Cleveland Heights. We were the 3rd occupants. We met a number of Cyrus, one of Clark's children's daughters, actually 2 of them over the years, as they reflected on their experiences with their late mother and all the years they had in the house. So we have a very close connection to the family. So thank you, JB and Andrew, from the bottom of my heart for this gracious chair, and to the Ford family for their generosity. And I have to say, I see this as an endowed couch, because a chair isn't big enough to fit all of the people that have worked with me and helped me get here. So thank you.
I'd like to take a photo. You want to take a photo? Sure.
I'd like to invite Manoj Malhotra to the stage to introduce Tony Baccaro, who is the Lewis Progressive Endowed Professor. I forgot to give the tagline on the other, but we learned about the Ames folks. This professor was established back in '81. We've had it for quite a long time. In honor of the Lewis family and Progressive Corporation, contributions to Cleveland and the management practice. So Manoj, you want to do the introduction?
Thank you. It's my distinct honor to introduce Tony Baccaro, who is one of the younger faculty members in our school. And between Richard and Tony, it makes you feel very optimistic about where the future of the school is, because he's so amazing. He actually spent a lot of time in the industry. He spent 15 years with Deloitte, which is one of the biggest professional service firms in the world. He was a partner for the final 3 years and spent about a year in a national role. And most of his time, he was helping clients identify and manage different kinds of risks. Then he left Deloitte, and I think it takes a lot of belief in the idea of learning and teaching and educating others to leave such a lucrative position with growing children, 2 children at home, and actually join the accountancy program at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which happens to be not only one of the top PhD programs, but also one of the strongest renowned faculty groups in the field. So, and then after that, we were fortunate to have him come to Case Western Reserve University, which took place before my own tenure here in 2017. So he has made some unique and novel contributions because he comes from a very unique and novel background. There are not too many partners in major firms who actually choose to do the PhD. He is one of the few who has done that. And a primary focus of his research was on critical thinking in accounting and business in general. And another focus is that how can research impact practice? So he does want to bring the two worlds together, one in which he lived, the one in which he lives right now. And I think the connection between the two is very important to his thinking. So he has published 7 articles, and 6 of which are directly focusing on ways to help people, which would be auditors, investors, students, think more critically and effectively about financial information. And these articles are in some of the topmost journals in the field, the Accounting Review, Accounting and Organizational and Society, and Contemporary Accounting Review. So these are some of the top journals in the field, and he has been able to successfully publish his work there. So he recently, among these top publications, he recently published a study with several co-authors that is the first step in developing an expert system for practicing auditors to help them make an informed and well thought out decision that is often very challenging for them. And so given his career, including a good deal of working with technology and the risk and using technology to mitigate the risk, his transition to focusing on technology in accounting and business just seems to be a natural thing that makes sense. So he's currently working with a colleague from economics, Sining Bang, to develop a study of generative AI intelligence tools to be used in business classes to help students think and learn better. Now, focusing on teaching future practitioners to be more critical evaluators of the information they get and how to use it for making practical decisions, he and John Kaiser recently published a teaching case. So he's not only looking at the research side of the fence, but he's also looking at the pedagogy and how he can affect the future auditors, accounting students, and folks that who will going to run in the business world. And keeping with that focus on practitioners, he recently co-authored an interview study for which he and his 2 co-authors spoke to 16 controllers and chief accounting officers to identify trends and concerns that researchers may be able to study so that they can directly impact the practice. So his work in the field has not gone unnoticed, and recently was asked to join the editorial team for Accounting Horizons, and which is one of the top practice-focused journals in the accounting discipline. So he will start his 3-year term in July, along with all the other responsibilities. Now, both from my perspective of somebody who had a chance to observe Tony as an administrator, it was wonderful to see what he has meant for his colleagues and his department, but also for the school. He has increasingly stepped into roles of leadership, served on committees, including strategic planning. I believe that he chairs the faculty council right now, which is an important decision-making group of faculty representation. And it's just wonderful, not only to his students, but also to his faculty colleagues and everybody in general. So I feel very optimistic about the future of this institution when I see faculty members like Tony Buccaro rising through the ranks, and there are some others also who are being recognized today. And so I think it is a great privilege for me to have actually named Tony Buccaro as Lewis Endowed Professor when I was the dean. And with this introduction, I warmly welcome Tony to come and say a few words.
Well, thank you, Manoj. Great introduction. I was sitting here listening to Melvin and Ellen introduce Richard, and I'm thinking, wow, cut 2 zeros off that number of citations, and you've got me, right? And then I was thinking, okay, I could say the same thing about everybody else who's sitting in these chairs. So it's so humbling to be up here at all. So I'm tremendously grateful for the chance to be up here, tremendously humbled by the people in this room. And I want to express my gratitude in that realm to several people, several organizations. I don't think there's anybody here from the Lewis family or from Progressive, but, oh, I want to introduce myself to you later.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It just means so much that the business community supports not only education, but supports research as well. And by the way, I meant to say this earlier. This is the only place where somebody like me can be called young, and I love it. This is fantastic. But the fact that the business community appreciates research as well as teaching is so meaningful. The fact that our administration, prior and present, also focus on research and actually putting the money where the mouth is, right? Actually giving the resources that we need to do research is so meaningful. So I appreciate that tremendously as well. One person that I have to thank, who probably wasn't expecting to be thanked, is my beautiful wife, Penny, who is here with me today. Think about this. I was literally at the pinnacle of my career. And I said to my wife, you know what? I don't want to be a partner anymore. I'm going to go get a PhD and be a professor. And she's still here. And so, thank you for that. That's all. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Thank you both.
Should we get Tony back out? Tony, everybody.
Well, we seem to like accountants tonight. I don't understand that, but, you know, what can I say? Our next honoree is Tim Fogarty, who's the Andrew Braden Professor in Accounting and Auditing. This professorship was established in 2013 in memory of Andrew Braden, a beloved professor who taught accountancy at Case Western Reserve for more than 40 years. I'm not sure how many people knew Andy. He was still active when I got here, and he was a mainstay of the department. And his picture's still on the wall up there on the fourth floor. So this is a real honor. Tim is a perfect person to do this. He's been with us for, and I should know this, It's someplace in the notes here, for a number of years. He's probably,
Number of decades.
not as many as me, but a lot. And he has been prolific. When I heard for the first time, I think on the appointments committee or sometime, what his productivity was, I was astounded. Over 200 publications in peer-reviewed journals. He's also got, and I thought this is interesting, he's got more degrees than I think anybody else in the faculty, maybe. He's got an undergraduate degree, 3 master's degrees, and 2 doctoral degrees, if you count a JD as a doctoral degree. I think the reason he's still here is he didn't want to leave. And so he decided the next best step was to be a professor. So he decided to stay on and be with us. And he's done a wonderful job over the years. His research is in 3 main areas: accounting and regulation, organizations that employ and influence the work of accountants, and accounting education. I'm reading from the bio here. So I hope that captures it, Tim. Out of the 200 publications, I wasn't about to go through and figure out what to say about each one of them, but it's very impressive, and his Vita is on the website, so go and download it and get blown away. It's really quite amazing. He's also on the editorial board of 2 journals in accounting, prestigious journals, including being the editor of one and the associate editor of another. He came in '89. I see the notes now. So he's been here since then. He's well known as a teacher as well. Really good course ratings. He's been excellent, and he covers a wide variety of courses. For those who haven't been familiar, to have an accountant teaching law as well is just amazing. So our students have learned business law, have learned regulation, all sorts of other things. So he's sort of
Including me. In the fall of 1995.
Oh, you had him really? How about that? So he's done a lot of these. In 2013, he was appointed. Did I kill it? Uh-oh.
Thank you.
That is not a. I think I touched something here I shouldn't have. Oh, there we go. He's been the senior associate dean for a number of years after I was associate dean. He's been chair of the department. He's done a whole variety of things. In the profession, he's extremely well known and has done a whole lot in that area in a number of ways. So Tim is a wonderful colleague and always honest. He's always been very clear in terms of his standards and what he expects to have. And he's a good colleague in that respect. So he's been a stalwart person in the faculty for all the years that he's been with us. And I want to thank him so much for being here and welcome him to the podium to say a few words, Tim.
Well, it will be a very few words, but faculty members are used to speaking in 50-minute intervals, and so they said speak for 2 or 3 minutes. So I said, okay, you're not getting too much. Yes, in fact, we should recognize the people whose shoulders we step upon, the giants that we depend upon. And unfortunately, I never met Andy Braden. I came here in '89. Andy retired a couple years before then and moved to Florida. But the idea of keeping the fire of accounting alive at Case Western for all those years, from the 40s to the 80s, is just incredible and needs to be recognized many times. But in addition to that, following Andy, here today with us, Gary Previtz was the next leader of the department, a person whose name is synonymous with Case Western across academic accounting. And I've said before that if I could do only a fraction of what he's done in his career, it would be enough. And I'm still working at it, but getting there slowly, maybe. So yeah, I have been here a long time, for 35 years. I like to say I reached the permanent period long ago. But, to tell you the truth, and I do recognize, in addition to having an undergraduate student who, now is dean of the school, I also have a doctoral student who's a president of an Ohio university. So, you pass it on. You hope for everybody to do well, and they do. And, I've been lucky enough to work with hundreds of co-authors over my time, all of which I enjoyed working with. And it's a great opportunity. It's a perfect life. You get a chance to be with young people, reaching their adulthood and filled with joy and promise. And you get to each day work with the smartest people I ever knew to be collected. And, the fact of the matter is, I've never wanted to be at another place other than here. So thank you very much. Okay.
We'll now introduce David. We'll hear from David Cooprider, who will introduce Ron Fry as the B. Charles Ames Professor. The professor was established in 2014 in memory of B. Charles Ames, who served as the first chair of the Weatherhead Schools Visiting Committee and had a long, profound impact on Western Reserve, from mentoring students to creating the Ames Business Plan competition. Chuck was a stalwart for the school for many, many years. His son and his daughter were hoping to be here, but they're snowbirds and they weren't back from Cleveland until 3 or 4 weeks from now, but we'll get them together later on anyway. So, Dave, you're on screen.
It's my great privilege now to introduce Professor Ronald Fry as we celebrate his honor of being named the B. Charles Ames Endowed Professor of Management. I was asked to share the story of how I first met Ron, for indeed I've experienced his extraordinary gifts as my ever-present mentor for over 4 decades. Carl Jung once said, "One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings." The curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but warmth is the vital element for the growing plant and the soul of the child. It was in 1979 when I started my PhD here at Case, and I was young, out of my league maybe, totally terrified. That is, until my first courses with Ron. In one course, taught by both Professors Suresh Shrivastava and Ron Fry, a group dynamics course where the students initiate and lead all the spontaneous dialogues, well, I sat there for 3 full days, completely frozen, the only student who uttered not one word. In fact, I was certain, with all the brilliance around me, that I should not even be there. That's when Ron became my steady rock and sturdy mentor, a gift that continues to this day. Ron turned his signature warmth and calm attention to me and lifted me up. He nudged. He helped me see hope in myself. The details, they're just simply too much for right now, except to say, I now know that I was born under the luckiest of stars to have had Ron land in my life as more than my teacher. Anais Nin, the essayist, put words to it perfectly. She writes, "Each mentor represents a world in us, a world possibly not born until they arrive, and it's only in this fateful meeting that a new world is born." Let me now turn to Ron's academic excellence in teaching, in research, and service to the university and the world. In terms of teaching, of course, I'm not the only lucky student. Ron has taught, and this is just a back of the envelope estimate, over 160 Weatherhead School courses at the undergraduate and graduate and executive education levels, literally touching thousands of students' lives. Ron's been part of 115 PhD dissertation committees, including mine, serving as chair of 26 of those committees. Moreover, Ron, early in Ron's career, the leaders of Case Western Reserve University realized they had landed a gifted educator and honored him with the highest teaching award at our university, the Dieckhoff Award for Outstanding Teacher in the Professional Schools. In terms of research, Professor Fry is recognized worldwide as one of our field's thought leaders. Ron has nearly 100 publications, 55 journal articles, 11 books, an additional 31 book chapters. And in the Academy, Ron was elected as chair of the Academy of Management's Organization Development and Research Division, and soon became co-managing editor of the Journal of Corporate Citizenship, which he served for years. From the moment Ron received his PhD from MIT, Ron has been prolific in his scholarship on teams and group dynamics, experiential learning theory, appreciative inquiry, large systems change, and now via his most recent work on business as an agent of world benefit, he has helped build a data bank of some 6,000 student-led interviews with ahead-of-the-curve entrepreneurs and corporate leaders. Moreover, Dr. Fry's service to the university and business world is remarkable. When we think of the word mentorship, with qualities of total commitment and caring and the non-existence of any cynicism or divisiveness, but only serving as a champion of kindness, we commonly think of mentorship with individuals. But here I want to propose Ron as Weatherhead's mentor. Always there for the school, steady and sturdy, quietly championing all of us, every department, and the wider community. Ron has served Weatherhead tirelessly as president of council, director of the executive MBA program twice for a total of 14 years, chair of the organizational behavior department, pioneer of many new executive education programs, director of our master's program in organization development, and most recently, Ron has taken on leadership as the faculty chair of the Fowler Center. This is not an exhaustive list, for I've left out Ron's strategic advising with business and community leaders, including dozens and dozens of organizations, and with student mentees at his side, from Sherwin-Williams to the Canon Corporation, from the U.S. Navy to World Vision, as well as his current organizational advising with the Secretary General of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. And you can imagine the complexities organizationally at the Red Cross with all of today's human tragedies, including so many children in Ukraine, across the Holy Land, and so much more. Ron, let me end by sharing just one genuine and deep feeling, one word, for your enduring impact on my life, our school, the thousands of students and colleagues that you've touched, and our entire Weatherhead School. And that one word is total gratitude, Ron. Everyone, please join me now in sharing our collective gratitude as we now invite the B. Charles Ames Endowed Professor of Management, Dr. Ron Fry, up to the front of the room to say a few words.
I'm glad I gave him an A. So much like Richard and Tim also acknowledged, I've always felt that one of, if not the greatest fulfillment in being a professor, and particularly here at the Weatherhead School, is that doctoral students find their way into your life. And that was one of my several examples, but obviously I'm deeply grateful, David, for those remarks. Before I kind of begin with a few remarks I wanted to share, Richard, you have such a large bio, it's natural for people to forget important things. I just want to point out one thing that wasn't mentioned about Richard. At a time in his life, he was the Travis Kelce of the Cambridge-Boston Sunday Touch Football League until an injury ruined his career. Just let it go, but I wanted you to know we don't forget certain things. Let me begin just gratitude to Joe Rice and the Ames Family Foundation for their generous support to the school. Unlike, similar to JB, I've been here 45 years, but unlike JB, I can't say that I know all those people that were on that list. B. Charles Ames, or Chuck, as he was referred to by his friends, was here when I was here, but I did not remember meeting him, or I do not. From what I gather in the little research that I did, I think he was hanging out with the strategy, planning, and marketing types of my colleagues. And probably in those days, he wasn't too connected to that touchy-feely group in organization behavior. So I went to do some background as best I could. I discovered that he was a prolific practical scholar. And among other things, when you see his public bios, they note that he was prolific in contributing to the Harvard Business Review. So I started looking at some of those articles. And again, most of them had that flavor of strategy, planning, marketing. But there was one published in 1989. It was called Straight Talk from the New CEO. And it was basically a manifesto in leadership from Chuck's point of view. And it covered the basic areas, but it included some gems, I think, having to do with what I'm always interested in, the human side of the enterprise. So I wanted to share just a few comments, quotes that struck resonance with me. So, 1989, lots of things have changed, as we all know, in the context of any firm, any kind of organization, let alone businesses. But maybe, perhaps, some things have remained fairly constant. So I want to point out a few that struck out to me. So one, when he's talking about people management, one quote was, "Dedicated and engaged people can make any structure work. Conversely, ineffective people will be that way in any structure." He said to be wary of cultural misfits, and he described three: bullies who kiss up and kick down, politicians who are more interested in making the right move rather than doing the right thing, and those who lack the honesty and integrity necessary to gain the trust of others, to earn the trust. A healthy work environment, he described, enables people to succeed in their work, develop themselves, and achieve their aspirations. And they went a little further and said that this kind of healthy work environment is characterized where everyone is free to say what she or he really thinks. Everyone demonstrates a genuine interest in being part of a solution versus pinpointing blame. And managers are those who sincerely listen and are willing to admit mistakes. Now, you all may be already thinking, well, those are easy things to subscribe to, high, lofty values or descriptions. And he acknowledges that. He says that they're easy to subscribe to, much more challenging in practice. So I'm hoping that with the resources and the honor of the chair, it will help to expand our work in what we call creating generative connections, where stakeholders, all kinds of stakeholders, particularly in large numbers, can actually come together, create rapid trust, and collaborate in positive change. I'm also very honored to be the second recipient of this and succeed my colleague and friend Mohan Reddy, who was the inaugural recipient of this chair. And also to the deans and our current leadership, deep gratitude, sincerely. Thank you.
There are two things I have to add before I introduce the next person. To Ron, he has an award, a little-known award, for the best mustache in North America. I have been wondering ever since I got here how he does it, and I wind up with this little wimpy thing, so to give me lessons. The second one is that some of us that have been here a long time, and I put Richard and Tim and Ron all in the thing, live under an illusion that we never get older because the students don't ever get any older. So we still think we're as young as we were when we got here. It's amazing. A real gift of academia. That was supposed to be a joke, by the way, but it's okay if you didn't laugh. Well, let me move ahead now and invite Gary Previtz to come to the podium and introduce Greg Jonas, who is the Elizabeth M. and William C. Troya Professor of Management. This professorship was established in '68 in honor of William C. Troyoff, who attended both Case Institute of Technology and Adalbert College, and later became a trustee of Western Reserve University. And this is special to me because I was the first holder of this chair. So I got to know the Troyoffs personally and held it for many years. So it's a special time for me. Thank you. Okay, Gary.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Once you turn emeritus, things change. And it's just great to see so many.
Do you start getting older then?
Yeah, you do. JB has made the point that the Troyhoff Chair was one of the earliest chairs in the school, perhaps the earliest, in 1968. And that chair is being combined with someone I think is one of the most accomplished and thoughtful colleagues I've had the opportunity to know in the years I've been here. And I met him when he came in on a faculty interview in 2007 as a candidate for an appointment in our department. As JB has started out to mention, Troyhoff Professorship in Management represents the significant business and community contributions of the family, the Troyhoff family, and in particular Elizabeth M. and William C. Troyhoff, the dedicated namesakes of this important appointment. Their business acumen and that of the related family members here has left a lasting impression in this community through their Tremco Corporation, a pioneer in the field of coatings and now a key corporate element in a major Northeast Ohio-based holding company, RPM International. Through the efforts of other members of the family, including Art Troyhoff, who's the president of Lander Circle and the developer of Landerhaven, the Troyhoffs continue to leave their mark on our business community and the landscape through their benefactions. Since his appointment to the faculty in 2007, Greg has made a successful transition from an experienced corporate executive in both publicly and privately held corporations. He is one of the most effective teachers in the school, a valued colleague, and a helpful administrator in the Weatherhead School. His scholarly and scholarship and networks stretch across the country and around the world. Through his influence and leadership in one of the largest professional organizations in accountancy, the Institute of Management Accounting and its Research Foundation. He's a CMA, a Certified Management Accountant, and has served the Institute in a variety of technical, research, service, and leadership roles for the past 2 decades. His contributions to the field of management accounting through his research on reporting issues about earnings and disclosures required of publicly held companies following the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 are notable for their attention to transformative practices of financial record keeping and reporting for corporations. However, it's not just his work in these wide-ranging, influential professional circles or in his research interests that Greg has distinguished himself. His contributions in the classroom, being twice recognized as the Outstanding Graduate Program Professor, and through his doctoral seminars on research methods, and in his PhD dissertation chair roles, and as a member of PhD committees, he has strengthened in important and lasting ways our pedagogy and the education of our students in accountancy, as well as in our Keystone MBA programs. Greg's years of experience as a business executive have provided perhaps the greatest value to our community. Since 2018, in his many roles as Senior Associate Dean for Academics and Graduate Programs. Greg is a person you want on your team. And I think everyone can appreciate the meaning of that particular phrase. He is a team player. He's productive, a willing participant. He's charged often with addressing those difficult challenges in this leadership role. He's sought out and relied upon when many aspects of academic life involving faculty, students, staff, administrators in the school and across the campus require an experienced voice of reason. This is indeed tonight a very special occasion. Prior to the event, we were talking about, is this something that's unique? And in my recollection, and I think JB's and others, probably Ron's recollection, this is a unique experience and one that each of you that is recognized tonight certainly well deserve. You know, it's not only for us, but also for our families, and in Greg's case, for his bride, Stephanie. Stephanie, if you just kind of stand for a second so everyone get a chance to acknowledge it. Thank you for your support. It's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight and to extend my congratulations to all those being honored and recognized. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'd like to start by thank yous, because that's, I think, the most important part of what I'd like to say tonight. So thank you to Dr. Previtz. As he indicated, I still remember that fateful evening when we met for the interview and kind of the dinner beforehand. And Gary has been a great mentor and colleague throughout the time I've had at the Weatherhead School of Management. It's fun, too. We've got other colleagues from the department, Dr. Fogarty, one of my most common co-authors, and Professor Buccaro, all great colleagues, as well as others in the school that are here being honored tonight. So thank you for being great colleagues and mentors. I'd also like to thank the Troyhoff family, which I don't believe any members are here tonight, but endowments like that are help what higher education needs to move forward. So thank you very much for that. Also, I'd like to thank the deans for the support in the nomination and approval process. It's a very great honor to receive an endowed chair. So I'll keep my other comments brief, but it's interesting listening in the audience to common touch points. So following Tony's comments, I went through kind of the same process, but through the managerial side. I started out with aspirations of a program and career in corporate accounting, and indeed went through public held corporations like Gulf and Western Manufacturing, on into some very large private corporations, and then into helping a small-ish family-owned corporation down in North Carolina. And one day I came home from work and I said, Stephanie, I've decided I want to quit my job and go in to get a PhD and join higher education. And she said, what? But what followed was nothing but support. And the decision is a tough one. And a lot of times it comes down to, do you feel better off helping organizations make more profits, or is it time to give back to society? And I thought the ability to reach students and inform them and help them be successful was a much better value proposition. So I've tried to do that in the teaching. I've tried to connect research that goes back to the practice of business. And I've been involved in, as Gary mentioned, in some of the more service-oriented activities in the school, hopefully drawing upon my past practice in leading organizations, but then helping to apply those skills to higher education in the Weatherhead School of Management. So with that, again, trying to keep the comments brief because I realize as we get closer to dinner, there's more of a sense of urgency for that. But again, thank you to everybody that's here tonight. Thank you to those that helped out with the endowment and my career leading up to this point. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes. Please. Okay. Thank you.
I'd now like to invite Anurag Gupta to the podium to introduce Leonardo Madeira, Kenneth Walter Haber Professor. This professor established in '97 by Walter Haber in memory of his son Kenneth Walter Haber, who was a friend of the university. Anurag?
It's really a pleasure and an honor to introduce Leonardo Madureira for this chair. I remember when Leo started with us in '05, straight after his PhD from UPenn in Wharton, which is, of course, one of the really hard programs to get into in finance. And ever since, we've been close friends, colleagues. If I have any question in finance, econometrics, or a lot of things in life, my first phone call or email, or actually a text, is to Leo. So it's been actually a pleasure to have him around for all these years. He has long industry experience as well. So prior to his PhD, he spent nearly 10 years in consulting after his MBA and an undergrad in computer science from actually a top school in Brazil. And I think it's really shaped the way he does his research, because his research really brings in the ideal combination of rigor and relevance. I'm going to speak a little bit about his research, which he has several strands of research, but amongst his research, his main area has been on examining the role of information in markets. So he has looked at various agents in financial markets and seen how they create information which actually affects our prices and markets. So as an example, he has several publications in the area where he has looked at equity research analysts on the sell side and their recommendations for stocks and all the conflicts of interest which exist in that industry, along with the industry expertise which they bring in as well. In fact, it was probably several years ago, if I recall about 8 or 9 years ago, when I learned his research was actually being used to teach PhD students in top PhD programs in actually around the world. And that's a great honor. He has this unique distinction of having multiple A-journal hits in both accounting and in finance. So sometimes we have this concern, are we going to lose him to the accounting department? But no, he's staying with us because he has been able to successfully publish in the very top journal in both fields.
On the teaching side, he has been involved with several courses around, all these years. But his main course is an empirical methods class, which has been a mainstay of our MS program in finance. And it's probably one of the most impressive courses I've ever seen in my entire life. It's a rigorous course. It's an applied course. It has a lot of real examples with rigor, and I think his industry experience, along with the PhD, actually brings in the rigor and relevance at the same time. And he's an outstanding teacher. He's absolutely an outstanding teacher in the classroom at all levels. He's been intricately involved in service. In fact, in so many of my prior administrative roles, if I needed any help, again, my go-to guy was always Leo to ask for help, and he was always available to help. He was associate dean for research and faculty for 6 years until recently. He's been on several important committees in the school for so many years. He's helped with our MS program in finance right from its inception in 2007 in extremely meaningful ways. And also our MS actually program in China, which we had for so many years, about 11 years. I always say if I had to construct, and I'm not exaggerating, if I had to construct actually a perfect academic in my field, I think it would be hard for me to improve upon Leo, because he brings in all the strengths of research, both rigor and relevance, along with all the strengths of teaching and service. And above all, he's one of the nicest human beings I've known in my entire life. So I'm really proud to have him as a colleague, as a friend, and I hope it's really the start of his journey, and at least he's well before the halfway stage, let's put it that way. So congratulations, Leo.
Thanks, Anurag, for the kind words. Anurag has been my mentor since I came here, and as I said, has been a very good friend for many years now. So he's probably biased when he say, but anyway, thank you. It's an honor to be here accepting this chair. I want to thank the deans, JB and Andrew, for trusting me to have this position here. I want to thank my colleagues at BAFI and also my colleagues at large at the university that makes this workplace so pleasant to work and also challenging. This was hinted already in previous speech that holding a chair like that is a humbling experience. It is humbling because at the risk of using or relying too much on value by association, it means that having this chair that I'm side by side or together with those giants, right? Those other chair professors that I admire and that really personify excellence in research. Many examples. Richard is right here, right? A true scholar. And I want to add one line to his extensive resume. In all my years as associate dean of research, Richard has always helped me, has always been in the research committee, and I learned so much. He's so patient with everything else that he has to do. He has been so patient with that role. So thank you, Richard. And the pressure goes on. And let me tell you that this chair was previously held, but none other than Peter Richkin. And I don't need to spend many words here to this audience to speak of the research powerhouse that Peter is. So, by the way, Peter, you are partly responsible for this because Peter hired me when I came to Weatherhead. But my big thank you here is to my wife, Heather. That's the main reason I'm standing here. So perhaps to give some context, let me indulge here in telling a little bit of my, let's say, non-linear path in academia. So many years ago, I was getting my undergraduate in computer science, and at the same time, I was getting a master's in applied mathematics. And at the time, my plan, and that of my professors, was to go full academia, right? I finished those two degrees, and I get my PhD, perhaps in computer science or math, I didn't know. But then, close to graduation, I got a job offer, and it was a good one. That's Brazil. We don't have many good job offers there. And I needed the money, so I quit. I finished undergraduate. I left the master's thesis unfinished, and I went to work. And I spent a couple of years, like 10 years, or 9.5, 10 years in consulting. But then halfway through that, I was bored, or let's say unchallenged. I felt unchallenged, and I said, you know what, let me dip the toes again in academia. So I went back and got my master's in business. It was kind of an MBA, but there was a thesis involved, etc. Part-time, I was still working. So I finished that, and then I said, what's the next step? And I thought, well, perhaps a PhD in finance, because at the time I was exposed to finance both at work and in the master's. And I thought finance is quite cool because it's the ultimate applied math, you know. Anyway, so at that time, Heather and I were together already. And we had good jobs. We were actually working in the same company in one of the most amazing places on earth. That's Ipanema in Rio de Janeiro. For the ones that haven't been there, I really encourage. It's still, to this day, the place that I miss most. And we go there probably every year anyway. But then there was this question here. It's like, well, like Tony, right? Perhaps Greg too, right? So what do we do? Like we quit, we drop everything, you know, the life, our jobs, and go to this uncertain thing called a PhD in finance / academia in a different country. At least for me, it was a different country. And looking back, I don't think I would have done that on my own. But at that time, and since that time, I've had the encouragement support I've had. So without her, I would not be here. So that's the main reason I'm here. Thanks, Heather. And thanks, everybody, for indulging me in telling this short story of the academic life. Thank you. Thank you. Come on, come on.
Our next honoree is Manoj Ultra, who is the John R. Mannix Medical Mutual of Ohio Professor of Healthcare Management. I have to tell you that when I held that chair, the people at Medical Mutual made me put that on my shirt every place. It was really embarrassing to have all that on there. No, I'm kidding. And we have people from Medical Mutual that have been here today, and we really appreciate that. It was established in 1991 in honor of John Mannix, who was Medical Mutual's contributions to Cleveland. He was the founder of the Blue Cross system, a mentor of mine when I came to town, knew more when he died at 84, and I was a pallbearer in his funeral, than I know or ever knew before. He's an amazing guy. In the field of healthcare management, let me tell you a little bit about Manoj. Although I think most of us probably know him as dean, but as a scholar, he was outstanding. He is outstanding. Don't make it past tense. 64 peer-reviewed articles in print, with 22 of them being published in the top rank UT Dallas. I think that's probably about as good as anybody else. 14,157 citations. Richard, he's going to catch up with you if you're careful. That's a very large number. He's among 9 faculty members, and we should be proud of all these folks who are listed at the top level in the field in terms of the citation index. So he's done that, and I told him when he left the deanship, I have no idea how he did that and managed to keep that going while he was dean. It's an amazing feat. His area is operations management. He's in the operations research department, but operations management section of that. And so his articles are published there largely. The Medical Mutual, the Mannix Chair, is a healthcare-oriented thing, and he has written a number of articles in that area and continues his research in that area as well. So I'm not going to go through any more of that, but let me ask Manoj to come on up and say a little bit more and congratulate you for the chair.
It feels strange standing in front of you in this role, you know, because I've had the pleasure of working with so many of you in my role and capacity as the dean till 2022. But thank you, JB and Andrew, for this honor. And I also want to thank Medical Mutual of Ohio for support of this chair. And my predecessor had big shoes. JB also held another chair, so if you give it enough time, he'll hold every chair and that'll rotate back to JB. So I think JB did a lot in terms of writing about healthcare policy, the popular press. I actually knew about JB Silvers before I came here because of the articles that you did for columns in Wall Street, and so it was a great pleasure to kind of know that he's on the faculty here. And my own journey coming from Ohio State as a researcher is that I would like to thank Larry Ritzman, my advisor, because he and I were talking one day, and he said, Manoj, I've chaired 22 dissertations and I've never been able to figure out why some of the students go on and become great scholars and others just fall by the wayside. That why does C take place in some cases and doesn't take place in others. And having done 15 chairing of dissertations myself thereafter, I don't have an answer either, and maybe Richard with his 101 might have an answer, which is better than what we know. But I think I was very fortunate to get that sense of curiosity and the desire to learn more. And so research became one of the important hallmarks of my academic career. And even though I went through many different stages, and unlike Leo or Greg, who came through the ranks of working, my working actually took place in the industry after I became a faculty member. After I became a department chair and realized that the gap between me and the industry was so large, and that was not leaving me in a sustainable position to help my students. And so that's where I started working with the industry, and amazing amount of consulting and learning that we did with Fortune 500 companies, and working with the CEOs. And I think it changed me and it changed the organization, and which ultimately led to the path where I came here as a dean from an academic route. But I never did forget my roots, and in terms of my work in the healthcare operations, I was very fortunate that because of this work with the center, we did extensive amount of practical hands-on experiences at Palmetto Health, Carolina's Systems of North Carolina, McLeod Systems in Florence, South Carolina. We were sitting in emergency rooms, tracking patients and seeing how exactly we can reduce the time it takes to give pneumonia patients their medications so that they don't leave the system and ultimately come back in a much worse shape and not be able to make it. I did inventory control systems for the catheterization lab so that they had enough catheters available and not do cost overruns. We looked at the reagent labs. So my trips in and out of hospitals for learning about these things or nurse station allocations led to my great interest in the field and how to optimize the processes. And so it led to a slew of publications in process improvement, in strategy, all around the delivery of healthcare in an efficient and a patient-centric way so that the quality can be the highest. One of the papers that got a lot of attention was that do the healthcare systems mandated by the High-Tech Act and Obamacare, do they really help? There's so much controversy on it, and we, I think, took a step in that direction of saying that it's very contextual. It can totally mess you up and not help you, but it can also help you a lot when your complexity is high and the patient comorbidity is there. So I think those have been exciting journeys for me personally, and I have learned a lot. And I still continue to work in the healthcare. We are working on why hospitals close down. We are working on healthcare policy in terms of adoption and why it does take place or does not take place. And so it's just a wonderment of learning from my students, from my colleagues. And I think one of the great things about research is that it gives you a chance to come closer to your students. I have relationships, and I think almost all of us who have had the privilege of working with PhD students know that maintaining bonds with them over multiple years. Actually, I just have a paper in a second round review with a student who graduated 22 years ago. So those relationships are far more important than any research articles that we can write, and it has uplifted me, and I think it uplifts all the people who work with the students because it's through them that our work continues to live. And so there are many people, my co-authors, obviously the institutions through which I have been, and all the experiences that I had that I have to thank. But JB asked a question that, and I kept that up. It was very hard, but I kept it up through my administrative work also. And the last 10 papers I did, which was during my tenure as a dean, were perhaps some of the hardest in my life, because the time wasn't there. But the curiosity was there, the need to support my co-authors was there, to work with all the others to whom you almost have a network of obligation that you're a part of this structure or working together. And a lot of that would not have happened without Maya, whom many of you know. She has endured so many long evenings and nights when I was missing because of functions or dean work. And then over the weekends, I was working on my research papers, along with the other work of the school or what I have to do for the next meeting with the provost or financial and budgetary meeting with JB. And so it was a mishmash of so many different things that, and obviously I was absent a lot. But Maya has been a steadfast rock as she raised her children, who have gone on to good lives and careers of their own. And I just can't see how I would have done it without her. As Leo was saying, we become who we become because we get supported by people who are better than us in many ways and who don't get the limelight and who don't. But I do want to acknowledge all the spouses and all the wonderful supporting families of everyone who made this evening possible. And including... And I would like to say, I have a big thank you to JB and Andrew also for a different reason, because now they sit in the seat that I was in, and only when you've gone through it do you understand the complexities and the pressures and what it takes to kind of run it. And I'm sure their spouses are also putting up with a lot in terms of not having them around or not seeing them enough or pinch hitting because they just are trying to do so much for what their roles are. So JB, thank you, and Andrew, for helping out, and I have more time to myself right now, but you do a lot.
So pump those articles out.
So thank you for all that you do for the school and continue to do. And thank you, Maya, for all that you have done for me. And thank you to all of you for being supportive faculty and colleagues during my years of leadership here. Thank you.
If we could ask the good folks from Medical Mutual to come up. Well, our final, but definitely not least, honoree tonight is John Paul Stevens, who's the Theodore M. and Catherine C. Alfred Professor of Management. This professorship was established in honor of Ted Alfred, who I am sure many of you have known and who's literally the founding father of much of what exists here at Weatherhead today. JP, in so many ways, really epitomizes modern academic excellence. JP was trained at University of Michigan and came to us in 2010 and joined our world-renowned OB department. And I'm certainly pretty jealous of that trajectory, having worked with legends and having had the mentorship of all the folks that we've heard from today, from Ron to David to Richard and Melvin and Ellen. But quickly, unlike so many others, I think you found your domain expertise and really made an impact and proceeded to promotion several years ago and then tenure. Now, today, JP studies what perhaps was once frontier, but it's oh so critical world of purpose-built teams, relational experiences, and team effectiveness, basically the building blocks of modern workplace. And so Scott Cowan told me once a story of how 30 years ago he was talking to a newly hired junior faculty member named Diana Villamoria, and who was introducing him to her research and gender in the boardroom. And she obviously had some, as a young colleague would, apprehension about the direction and what to do. And Scott then the story goes, put his fist down and said, damn it, this is going to be the future. This is the next 30 years right here. You do this. And so when I think of JP's work, I think of very similar things. When I think about my career in the industry and how much I have spent trying to construct teams that were ostensibly within a large corporate block, but were fluid, context dependent, diverse, and always unpredictable, we were making it up on the fly. And JP's work, I think, ultimately will decide for us, how managers of the future will deal with this. And so I think it's telling also how JP approaches his work. When I chaired the visiting committee for the school, and Manoj was working with the visiting committee to help get more practical content into the school, the call went out to the folks on the committee and the faculty to say, if anyone has projects that would enjoy corporate interest, let me know. Who was the first person to email me in the middle of the night and say, I've got eager undergrads who would like to actually come to your company and do a project and study culture and do a report out afterwards? It was JP. And today you'll find JP thinking through high academic concepts on construction sites at the Cleveland Clinic and really applying the concepts and thinking through team composition in a very real way. Now, given that focus and the hard work, it's no surprise that his work has been published in the Journal of Positive Psychology. The Oxford Handbook of Positive Psychology and Work has been presented in papers and symposia at the annual meetings of the Academy of Management. And it's, of course, no surprise that last year AOM recognized JP's contribution and named him an associate editor of this prestigious journal. In addition to all of his research, obviously we all know JP is a phenomenal and a popular teacher across programs. On top of all that, he's taken on massive service commitments and was chaired council and brought much positive structure and uplifting spirits to that august body, and continues to serve on council still today, and has been successful in securing prestigious grants, has been nominated for a number of awards university-wide and here at the school for both teaching and research. So it's a great pleasure to ask one of our finest colleagues, a friend, a sailor, to come say a few words to send us off into the night. JP.
Good evening, everyone. So I know I'm standing in between y'all and dinner, so I could just leave right now. But I'll be quick. I swear. There's a few things I want to say. I want to make sure I say them. First of all, as everyone else has been doing, sort of acknowledging the community and the people that we are, who have, blazed trails ahead of us, whose shoulders we stand on, who are cooking us meals at night, late at night. So certainly my parents, my family back in Trinidad, my beautiful husband, Jeff, who's here tonight, their encouragement and support, just creating time and space for me to do what I need to do has been fundamental. My mom, who will be 80 this year, I think the paper that got me tenure, which is about aesthetic experience in a choir and sort of the psychology of how we coordinate and adapt our coordination, I was working on that, struggling with that for years, knowing that it was really important, as I was going up for tenure. And I was trying to describe that to my mom, and she said something to the effect of, your time will come, right? When it's your time, it'll be your time. And that example of faith and faithfulness has stuck with me. And of course, the community right here at Weatherhead. And so I think we have a beautiful, diverse sampling of that community in this room. And so in the community where I live, the home that we've made here in Cleveland, go west side of Cleveland. So So within that, again, some more people to thank. Within that community, I'd single out Ron Fry for taking a chance and hiring me in 2010. I've been here for a long time, y'all. Diana Villamoria for coaching and supporting me. And I'm so happy that the wonderful Lila Robinson is here, mentoring me from the side. She was my neighbor for 14 years, and I learned so much from her. My action research partners at the Cleveland Clinic, who have provided me with a lot of practical experience and given me that space. Almost 10 years now, working with the clinic. The access to start to apply and sort of shift in my career now more to understand how does our scholarly work actually make a difference in real people's lives, and to be in a space where I can see that happen and feel the impact of my work. And certainly to, bless you, and certainly to my academic parents, Jane Dutton and Lance Sandilands at the University of Michigan. I would echo a few things that others have mentioned. The inaugural chair, my understanding is I'm the second holder of the chair. And I talk about some really broad shoulders to stand on. Richard Osborne was the first holder of this chair, the gorilla. And so I didn't even know what to do with that, right? Because I can't follow that act, for those of you who knew the gorilla. If you did not know the gorilla, I'll just say I went to a Dean's Weekend several years ago, and I don't know what I was doing there, but I was there and there's food, and because I don't teach the MBAs, but so alumni are there, we're downtown, there's faculty, and there's going to be a fireside chat with Richard Osborne. And you would have thought it was a Taylor Swift concert. It was, this is before Taylor Swift, right? So people were just going nuts. Like, oh, the gorilla's here, and oh my God, have you been in his class? And that was really interesting to see how starstruck people could be by really impactful and caring teaching, And then I had the privilege of the gorilla actually taking time to coach me and another junior faculty member about teaching. Some of his advice included, kill him with work. He's like, make them work, and I have actually taken that to heart. In that students want to be challenged, and to not underestimate your students. And I teach some really fun for me undergraduate courses, and I get to partake in that, knowing that the students really appreciate that sense of challenge, right, and being able to rise to the occasion. So I'm really honored to join all of you, but certainly to follow in the footsteps of the gorilla. The last thing I'll say is that Case Western Reserve University, so I'm going to blow this all up now. Case Western Reserve University, it's a tough place, right? There's the Case Institute of Technology, there's Western Reserve College that merged. So we are grounded in a university that has a history of folks really trying to come together. And I think it's the same in our school, right? We really try. We don't always get it right? But we keep trying. And I think that practice of us coming together, bridging divides, not doing so great sometimes, but then coming back at that endeavor, it's really a really special set of efforts. So I bring that up because of the representation in the room, and being an academic now. I mean, since I started grad school, it's almost 25 years ago. I know, yes, yep, that's right. There are only a few moments, I think, in academic life where we all come together. I think of them as sacred spaces. So I think this is such a sacred space. I think doctoral student defenses are a sacred space. really, really special moments. And, I've had the privilege, last chairing ceremony, I was at Peters, I was at Dick Boland's, and to witness the community coming together to honor those that represent them, I think is really unique. So to be up here now, from Trinidad and Tobago, went to historically black university, just became a US citizen a few months ago, and to be up here, yes, so I can vote for the first time in my life this year. So to come from that and to be up here with all of you is really fantastic. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, please, we're gonna go eat, I think. So, all right, I'll stop.
Before you guys sit down on the chairs.
Do I get a picture with you?
Yeah. We'd like to invite all of the 8 chairholders to please come up for one final photo of you actually holding the chair. It'll take a few of us.
Yeah,
let's do that. That's right.
Don't worry about which one is yours. This one's yours.
No, I don't know about that. I think that's
Yeah, I think you guys have to sit. You have to sit on your chairs.
But we do this now, thing.
We'll do one of each. Oh, an action shot.
Don't worry. Don't worry. We'll make it right later.
Yes, perfect.
All right, guys, everybody looking right this way? And right here.
Rich.
Action.
Let me add my final words, and then we'll adjourn for the evening to this wonderful group of people. This is the best job in the world. In case you didn't pick this up, this is the best job in the world. And these guys are sort of the epitome of what it means to be able to have fun, and they actually pay you. It's amazing to me still. But you also have a responsibility for guiding the school, for giving advice, for being involved in making the place great again. That was a bad one, wasn't it? Making the place great. And thank you for all the research that you've done, to the service to the school. And we really want to thank you for your excellence, collaboration, and unwavering dedication. So with that, let me thank you one more time, and then we'll adjourn for the evening. Thank you very much.